July 1943. On the steppes of Russia, tens of thousands of tanks clash for one of the greatest armored battles in history. Among the Soviet armor, a new threat looms: the German Tiger I heavy tank. Thick steel, devastating 88mm gun, near invulnerable at long range. The Red Army's T-34s, numerically superior, faster, but outmatched in armor and gunpowder. How do you beat a tank that laughs at your shots? Today, we'll discover how Soviet crews turned the tables, not by firepower alone, but by innovation, audacity, and sheer will. The secret? It wasn't the gun. It was terrain, coordination, flanking, and yes, sometimes ramming. Let's begin by understanding the cast of machines. The Red Army's backbone in 1943 was the 30-ton T-34 medium tank and the heavier KV-1 or IS-2. They were fast, rugged, produced in numbers. But the German Tiger I, introduced in late 1942, changed the dynamic. With frontal armor up to 100mm and an 88mm gun, it could destroy most Soviet tanks at 1,000 meters. Enemy reports described how it seemed invincible until crews began looking for another way. Soviet doctrine was evolving. Early engagement showed that conventional tactics, long-range engagements, head-on fights, would result in unacceptable losses. A study of the Tiger's weaknesses was necessary. As one analysis noted, either flank and engage from the side and rear, or let the Tiger come close to you. In short, mobility and aggression would be key. At the heart of Soviet response was doctrine. Get close, strike the side, immobilize the tank. As one academic source says, the Russians realized that the Tiger making it effective to fight only in close combat, where the T-34 could use its greater maneuverability and direct its fire at the sides of the heavy German tanks. And sometimes, when ammo ran out, or when surprise was lost, tank ramming entered the playbook. At the Great Battle of Kursk in July 1943, over 50 instances of tank ramming were recorded, even against Tigers and Panthers. Terrain mattered. The open steppe, ridges, fields dotted with hedges or villages, these all played to the Soviet advantage when used cleverly. Soviet crews were trained and drilled for harsh conditions. They knew the Tiger excelled in long-range shots. Their job was to negate that. They would flank, coordinate with infantry and anti-tank guns, move in masses, and when all else failed, they'd literally ram the enemy into submission. Let's look at a specific example. On July 12, 1943, near Prokhorovka, in the Kursk salient, Soviet tankers reported around 20 ramming actions in one day alone. One T-34 crew, commanded by Senior Lieutenant Afanasy Fyodorov, spotted a Tiger lying in ambush in the morning of July 28th. The driver, Ivan Dupli, exclaimed, "Commander, there's a Tiger behind the corner of the brick building. Shall we ram it?" The commander said, "Let's go." The T-34 accelerated, struck the side of the Tiger, ripped off its caterpillar track, and disabled it. The cost? Heavy. But the result? A Tiger neutralized without relying purely on firepower. Another notable case, on June 25, 1944 in Belarus, a Soviet T-34 rammed a German armored train. While this wasn't a Tiger, it shows the mindset, using what you have creatively. The tactic wasn't glorified. Often both machines were damaged, sometimes both crews died, but ramming became a tool of last resort and of desperation. In village streets, under conditions of snow or fog, when visibility was low and long-range firing difficult, ramming became a viable, if dangerous, tactic. One source notes, head-on ramming was, as a rule, reserved for exceptional circumstances, encounters in town and village streets, as well as especially close engagements. So what did this achieve? It forced the Tiger's advantage to evaporate. The Tiger I's gun and armor were formidable, but even a heavy tank has weaknesses. Flank armor less thick, slower turret traverse, larger silhouette, greater ground pressure, and vulnerability to track damage. Soviet manuals advised flank attacks, side shots, forced close quarters. And moreover, the real secret weapon was not the gun. It was the crew working together, using the terrain, coordinating with infantry and anti-tank guns, initiating close assaults, employing surprise. Soviet tankers, being nimble, sacrificing heavy armor for speed, could maneuver into positions the Tiger couldn't easily follow. They used ridgelines, forests, hedgerows, and village streets to break line of sight, close distance, and strike from unexpected angles. They used mass, charging multiple tanks, overwhelming a heavy single tank. As one historian put it, tank crews were ordered to close the range as quickly as possible so the T-34-76 could have a chance of destroying the Tigers. And when ammunition or tactical options were gone, ramming kicked in. The psychological effect? The Tiger's aura of invincibility began to crack. As a result, German heavy tank battalions found themselves adapting. Deeper positions, more supporting anti-tank weaponry, and tighter coordination with infantry and air support. The Red Army's willingness to innovate, to sacrifice, and to exploit terrain paid off. The immediate effect on the Eastern Front was to blunt the Tiger I and its successors. In the long term, these engagements forced all armies to rethink how heavy tanks were used and how medium tanks and mobility could challenge them. Post-Kursk, the Soviets continued to develop heavier tanks, IS-2 KV-85, and higher-velocity guns. At the same time, doctrine emphasized combined arms, mobility, flanking, and anti-tank obstacles rather than sheer frontal slugfests. The lesson? Superior firepower alone is not enough. The effectiveness of armor depends on human factors: crew training, coordination, morale, terrain usage, and sometimes creative desperation. In modern terms, the idea of using maneuver, surprise, and innovative tactics to offset a stronger opponent remains relevant. The Tiger vs T-34 engagements of the Eastern Front still teach us about asymmetry in armored warfare. So when Soviet tank crews faced the Tiger I, they didn't just fire at it and hope. They moved, they flanked, they coordinated, and when necessary, they rammed. Their secret weapon wasn't the gun. It was their mindset, their terrain, their willingness to fight differently. The Tiger may have stalked the steppes, but the T-34 struck with speed, agility, and innovation. In doing so, they helped shift the balance of armored warfare. If you found this story compelling, please like, share, and subscribe. Share your thoughts in the comments. What other examples of underdog tactics in armored warfare stand out to you? Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring history's hidden tactics.